Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of combat sports, the legend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing?
Good, just got back. A little tired, but, glad to be alive. That's a good thing to be alive. I think that helps. I got back from L.A. last night, was out there, the big card. First, I didn't know I was even going. The last second, I get a call from the great James and Spencer Brown, who do all the logistical work for Turkey Al-Sheikh, putting the shows together. Of course, Spencer Brown does more than just that. He puts a lot of fights together, works with the promoters, whoever they are. I went out there with my son, spent a couple days there. It was a great show. It was a Super Bowl festive atmosphere. I should also mention Spencer Brown does, a lot more than just helping with that. He's, of course, the manager of Tyson Fury and does a tremendous job with him. And he's got a few other fighters. And if you're with him, you're with a good manager, because you're gonna get the right fights and the right connections, and just brought along the proper way. But it was quite an event. I have to say, you gotta give people their due, and you gotta also, say when they're not deserving of their due and when something's wrong. But in this case, boxing is more healthy and relevant now than it was a year ago, before Turkey Al-Sheikh showed up. That card, and this is a veteran talking, that card that me and my son were at in Los Angeles over the weekend, Saturday night, was one of the most deepest, competitive, eye-catching cards you're ever going to see in the history of boxing. Yeah, that's quite a statement, but it's not overblown. It's not exaggerated. I mean, in the old days, you had great fights. You had, whether it was Leonard and Hearns, Leonard Hagler, Duran, Leonard, or whoever the stars were, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, all the stars. But you never had an undercard that was like this. Like, every one of those fights could have carried itself as a main event. Every one of them. And they turned out to be great fights. What Turkey Al-Sheikh is doing now is what the sport didn't have for years, and why the UFC was overtaking it as far as ratings, really overtaking it. The regular ratings. I mean, when you put a big Canelo fight on with a real credible opponent, if you put in a fight that the people really want, which was only happening once every year, once every couple of years, whatever, but it wasn't happening regular. The audience is huge for boxing. But UFC surpassed it on a regular basis, because on a regular basis, they were putting solid fights on. They weren't just putting on fights with the promoter's A side against the B side or C side to keep the promoter's fighter undefeated until he cashed in with a big fight somewhere. No, on a regular basis, UFC puts on fights with names and fights to be competitive. That's what Saturday night represented. It represented not just competitive fights, big fights, championship fights, with names that you recognized, names that meant something, names that were going somewhere, names that the public wanted to see, names that the public connected with. And then as far as the who of celebrity that was in the house in the soccer stadium, I mean, a sold-out soccer stadium, I don't know what the official number turned out to be, but a sold-out soccer stadium with every celebrity probably on the face of the earth. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but I mean, it was just, my son said, hey, there's Ariel, whatever his name was. I don't know, the guy that used to be the guy from Entourage. And it was one of my son's favorite shows. He said, there's Ariel, that was his name.
Ari
yeah.
Gold. Jeremy Piven.
Yeah, that's right. And he came over and started talking to me. And Vince Vaughn, I think the name of the big guy that's an actor. He's a big guy, nice guy. He came over and started talking. And then like a halftime. It was like a halftime at the Super Bowl. You have Eminem performing live. The atmosphere was just, it was like a Super Bowl atmosphere. I'd never seen anything like that in boxing. And put the atmosphere aside. Again, getting down to really what counts. The level, the caliber of fights. To put on that many fights that meant something. That many fights that were good. That many fights that were terrific. That many fights that really had something to do with what direction the sport's going. Who's going to be the next champ? Who's going to get the next? That many fights that were pivotal fights for the sport on one card. It's unheard of. And the credit is, again, goes to Turki Al-Sheikh. I don't know how long it's going to keep up. I think he's got something under his sleeve where he's thinking for next year to put together, hopefully, some more superstructure, real structure to the sport that can allow the sport to continue in a positive direction in all areas, hopefully in a more consistent way. Because right now, if Al-Sheikh disappeared right now, it would be like a blackout. It would be like somebody all of a sudden shut the grid down. Like everyone would say, "Oh, geez, the lights went out in boxing." That is how starkly different the sport has become since he's been around. Just making the fights that couldn't be made because the promoters wouldn't get together. They were protecting their side and not going across the street to make the fight that the public wanted, that the sport needed. And now he's doing that. Look, there's certain things that still I could argue about that aren't right. Like you did an incredible thing a couple months ago, and you're making one heavyweight champ for the first time in 25 years, and then it takes 5 minutes for the alphabet organizations to split up that, because the money, to split up to take one of those, the IBF, whatever, take one of those titles, and now you have that title being fought for with Dubois and Joshua, and then, the titles, all of a sudden, they're going to get splintered again. After you did all that work to do something historic, something important for the sport, something exciting for the fans, make one heavyweight champ. I guess you can't get around that, unfortunately. I wish we could get to where it was just one champion in every division like it used to be, where you could identify who the champion was. But it's still positive. What's happened? Look what's coming on the horizon. You still got Better BF and Bevo to come in October. It's really been a about face in the path of boxing in the last year. And you had some controversy, and you had upsets. You had a little controversy again. Boxing can't get away from that. But anytime you put on big fights and you also have upsets, that's all you need to know. That the matchmaker was right. That each guy had a chance to win. Each guy had a chance. Even if one guy was a 2-1 favorite, 3-1 favorite, the other guy had a chance, and that was the case. There was some good underdog plays. If you were doing my bookie stuff, you got some good opportunities. And look, I have an apology to make to Okal. Am I saying his name correctly? Bakole. I have an apology to make to Bakole, and we'll get to that fight. But I didn't give him enough credit, and I'll never do that again.
Oh, Martin Bakole.
Yeah, I was never high on Anderson. I made that very clear. But I thought he would win this fight because I didn't do my homework, and I never do that. I went by his record. He got stopped by Hunter a few years ago. Hunter's a talented kid, and the other guys he beat were a little older, solid guys, but they were a little older. So I went by that, figuring Anderson would be too young, too athletic. And like I said, I never really thought anything of Anderson. I just thought that he'd get by this fight. And I should have watched film of Bakole. I always do. I didn't. And I apologized. I didn't have my son yelled at me. He yelled at me. He goes, Dad, you can't do that. You're the most consummate professional I know. You can't. I said, yeah, it wasn't a main fight. So I kind of, I didn't, I was doing so much work on the others that I let it go. And there's no excuse. No excuse. But if I had watched film, I may have picked him. But at the end of the day, he looked like George Foreman. He looked like freaking George Foreman against Joe Frazier with the uppercut and the power and the way he was set to punch and his attitude and serious. And he's a great guy. Very religious, great guy. Couldn't be happier for him. Anderson was, he was an undefeated kid that the Top Rank was taking care of. I had been critical of him. I know he didn't like it. It's never personal with me. Never. But I had just said that I didn't see the development. I didn't see the advancement. I was seeing the flaws. I was seeing where, unless this guy gets better, I don't know that all the days are going to be this sunny for him. He's going to have a real cloudy day in front of him because and in some ways, I didn't think they were serving him well, giving him those kind of opponents that he could do things wrong and still win. Yeah. Because then you don't listen to nobody. You don't really believe that there's more to learn. Because like anyone would, not just him. Your ego gets built up and you start to think, hey, what do you can't criticize. I'm winning. I'm undefeated. You can't say that I'm this or I'm that. And they're not listening because they are winning. And I just felt that he should have been fighting a little better opposition that could have maybe brought to the forefront for him and his people around him to see where he still needed work. And unfortunately, they waited until he did get in there with a higher level, and they probably made a mistake. They probably didn't realize that Bakole was as higher level, like I didn't realize, as high a level as he was. But he was. And what it was like was dramatic. It was like going from the wading pool to the ocean. He went from a certain level of opponents that he was getting away with things, again, with his physical abilities. He's got physical abilities. He was getting away with it, and then he went in there with a guy that he couldn't get away with it. And these mistakes could have been corrected a long time ago. But it doesn't mean he still can't have a career. One thing he did show was tremendous heart. Tremendous heart. And that is something to build on if you can correct the other things. Anyway, we'll get back to that. Every fight was interesting. Some more than others. How about we start with the prodigy, right? One of the prodigies out there, Cruz, Andy Cruz, who's only got 3 fights now, but I think he's going to win a world title in a few more fights. Just like the great Lomachenko, the great Rigondeaux did, Morrell did, Leon Spinks did. I mean, there's not many guys that win a world title with a handful of fights. And Cruz, I think, is probably going to be one of those guys. He got tested a little bit with Moran. Let's introduce that fight, Ken.
Yeah, Andy Cruz, I think he moved his record to 4-0 after this one with 2 knockouts.
I thought it was 3. I'm sorry. Yeah, 4-0.
Yeah,
right.
I'm going to double check it, but I had it written down as 4. Andy Cruz gets the win over Antonio Moran, veteran, 30-7, 30 wins, 7 losses, 1 draw for Moran. Obviously, a lot of experience, 21 knockouts in his career. Andy Cruz gets the 7th round knockout. Like I said, gold medalist from the Tokyo Olympics on behalf of Cuba. 7th round stoppage.
Another one of those great Cuban, amateurs that came to our shore to get a better life and to win a world title. And I think he will. So many great Cuban fighters. So many. Just like so many Mexican great fighters, Puerto Rican great fighters. Then if you go back to different eras, there were great, all great Irish fighters, great Italian fighters. You go back to the 20s, 30s, 40s. Great Jewish fighters. But every ethnic group has. That's the one thing about boxing that connects all the ethnic groups. Or it really is. I don't think people think about that too often. That boxing has a connection with all ethnicity, all races, just all people that, especially that are trying to overcome, that are coming from struggle, that are coming from a place where you had to fight to get out of that place, like the island of Cuba, when it was, controlled by Castro. At that time, it's still a communist country, obviously, but people that wanted to have a better life, they wanted to have better dreams, they looked to get out of there. And what was it that catapulted them out of there besides the raft? It was a lot of times the sport of boxing, that they had developed in that country a gift, a trade that is easier to obtain when you are a person that has less, because it becomes a couple things. It becomes something that you can get rid of hard feelings. You can put those hard feelings in a proper positive place. If you have rage, if you have anger for some of the way that life is treating you, this sport gives you a place to properly put that, to use that in a constructive way, not a negative way. That'll make you better, your family better, society better. Places, people that come from hardened lives, that come from struggles, they gravitate to boxing. Boxing becomes that rope ladder. Those rope ladders that you see in the movies, you see in the commercials for the Marines, for the Army. They drop them out of a helicopter so somebody can climb up on them and get to the helicopter, get out of there, get to a safer place, get to a better... That's what boxing is. It's a rope ladder. It's a rope ladder to get out of those places, to get to a better place. And it's just, I didn't think of saying this when I came on the show today. It just connected with me because, again, it's the one sport that connects with all forms of humanity, and especially the forms of humanity that have seen the harder side of life. They see it as a way to get better, a way to get better in so many ways, a way to prosper, a way to feel better, a way to triumph over themselves, over some of the way that they were made to feel by life, that they weren't maybe good enough. Boxing gives them a chance to feel like and know that they are good enough. So I every time I see a kid come from Cuba or a hard place in Mexico, Puerto Rico, like I said, back in the days, there was the other ethnic groups that were coming from those places. But they're always the ones that are dominating boxing. Always. And it's just, it's something that I love to see. And Cruz is going to be a future champion. He got tested. He was in there with an experienced guy. It was the right fight for him only 4 fights. But still, with all the amateur background that he's got, gold medal in the Olympics, he could handle an experienced guy where another guy with only 3 or 4 pro fights wouldn't be ready. He wouldn't be ready. He'd probably lose to Moran. But Cruz was ready. He got tested. In the 4th round, he got hurt a little bit. He was throwing a double right hand, and he got countered with he stayed there a little too long, and Moran had to experience the counter at the right time to time him with a left hook behind the ear, hurt him a little bit. He overcame that. Like I said, it's the kind of fight that will make him a better fighter. Everything I'm talking about, all his abilities, all his talents, all his amateur credentials, and start to glue it together. This kind of experience will do that. The jab of Cruz was very important. Beautiful timing with that jab. He's a guy that doesn't really make mistakes. I just said he made one mistake, but on the whole, he rarely makes mistakes. He gives you nothing. You got to take it because he is solid technically. His instincts are good. He controls range well. His defense is good. He can counterpunch. When he hurt Moran, he went and finished him behind the jab, so he showed that he can do that too. He's a complete package. He's not the biggest puncher in the world, but he can hurt you because he got Moran out of it because he catches you clean. He catches you clean. And when you catch somebody clean, you have a better percentage you have a better chance to hurt a guy rather than just slightly off or, slightly caught by the glove. Especially when you catch guys clean because you caught them with a counter punch over a jab. They didn't see it. Those kind of punches. Cruz lands those kind of punches. Again, a very, very solid guy. This is a development fight for him where I think you're going to see the benefit of it down the line. I look forward to seeing this kid become a world champion. I really do. And talking about Cubans and prodigies, another one from the island of Cuba. Go ahead. Who was that, Ken?
Yeah, David Morrell moves to 11-0. His first fight at light heavyweight after campaigning at super middleweight. He moves up and wins a vacant, I believe, WBA title against Radivoje Kalajdzic. Not the best version of Morrell we've ever seen, but step up in weight, maybe competition. Curious to hear your thoughts on this one. How'd you like him? I think he was on an 8-fight knockout streak.
Yeah, Morrell is, again, from the Cuban national team. Won a world title in a few fights. Louis de Cubas, who I know for 100 years, manager found him and the lawyer Margulies handle him. They do a good job. Louis de Cubas, I've known him for so long. He finds all the great Cuban fighters. Not all of them, but he's found his share of them. And all you need to know about him was his arch enemy was a guy named Fidel Castro. Legend has it that Castro put a hit on him, put a hit contract out on him that he wanted him dead because he was stealing all his fighters. He was taking his fighters off the island. He was giving them a chance to actually have a life. And Castro was a former fighter and a huge boxing fan. So he was hitting him where it hurts. And then, of course, that's one of Louis' badge of courage, that Castro hated him. That is a pretty good badge of courage if you're from there. So Louis got another good one. He's got a good trainer, Ronnie Shields. I'm sure he'll continue developing him. And he needs development. That's what this fight is. A southpaw. He moved up to light heavyweight. In class of competition with Kalajdzic. Am I saying it right?
I think that's right. I think it's Kalajdzic. Kalajdzic. We'll say Kalajdzic. You'll get blamed for it. Kalajdzic is a cutie. He's a slick guy. He's an experienced guy. He's got plenty of heart. As I said, he's experienced. He went the distance with Morrell. He got stopped in 5 rounds by Beterbiev. Goes to show you how good Beterbiev is. It reminds you how good, and I'll say it again, how good Beterbiev is, how good he is. He stopped him in 5. And Morrell had his moments where he struggled a little bit, where, he won the fight clearly, but it was a fight that I think will make him a better fighter. I think he's a good kid, and I think he'll listen, and his ego will be intact and kept in its place. This is the kind of fight he can really develop from. He was in there with a fighter that was good defensively, a good counterpuncher, awkwardly clever, just an experienced, solid, slick guy. And I think Morrell took for granted a little that I'm going to go knock another guy out. And he learned a lesson. You can't have that attitude, and you're not going to knock everyone out. And if you do that, you might get knocked out, or you might get derailed, or something bad
like that might happen to you. I think he learned a lesson. And I'm sure the people around him make sure he learned that lesson. A lot of people were down on him after this fight, that he had his moments where you could see, some of that he had a couple warts, that it wasn't all perfect. And he was thrown a little wide. He was looking for one punch too much. He was looking for the power punches too much. He didn't go to the body enough. He didn't use the jab enough before he closes the gap completely to get in close to you. He reaches sometimes. He leaves himself a little exposed sometimes. If I had a fighter fighting him, I would look to pot shot him all night. I look to control the outside, let him do the work. When he starts to come, draw him in. When he starts maybe set traps. When he starts to come in, that last 3 feet where he starts to open up a little too soon, pot shot him with a straight right hand and see if you can catch him. See if you can hurt him. See if you can win that way without being in a fire with him, because you don't want to be in a fire with him. He's physically strong. He's a good puncher. He's thick. He's got a thickness to him, to his muscularity. Kalajdzic showed a blueprint to fight Morrell. Control the outside, counter punch, pot shot. When he throws a little wide, punch in between it. When you're on the ropes, you're making him. You don't want to be on the ropes, but if you're inside making a miss, punch in between once in a while, then get the hell out of there. Kalajdzic did a good job. He should get another good fight off of this. He really should. He did a good job. I'm not down on Morrell. A lot of people, he's not what we thought he was. He was overrated and all this stuff. He's still young. He's still a work in progress. He's got the goods. He's got the background. I think he's got the attitude. He's got the physical gifts, the physical abilities. I think he has the instincts. You don't give up on a guy like that. Not that anyone is, but a lot of the fans were like, he's not what. No, he needs to correct things. No doubt about it. But he got a wake-up moment. If he takes it the right way, he got a wake-up moment where before it goes to a bad place, they can get him on the trail that I think will lead him to still being a top fighter. It did show that he's not ready for the top guys yet. Maybe including Benavidez, maybe, but definitely Bivol and Beterbiev and those guys at light heavyweight. Maybe even Canelo, if Canelo was to go up there. But and I thought he was ready to beat Canelo. I don't take it back. And I'm not saying he still can't, but it shows you that he still has more to learn. That there were areas and are areas that still have to be developed, that have to be improved technically. And they're the areas I just touched on, where he don't throw from too far away, where he uses his jab more, where he comes in the side once in a while instead of the front door, where he sets up counters more, where he's less anxious, to just come forward. But I think it was a good fight for him. I am not down on him. I think he's still got a chance. If he corrects those things I just touched on, he's still got a chance to be one of those special guys. I'm sure that some of the guys up there that maybe were a little concerned about him, and there were plenty of them, they might be a little less concerned about him right now, where, they might be saying, maybe we could fight him and fight him now before he does get better, some of the top guys. But I made a note to myself, it was for WBA light heavyweight title. I'm like, doesn't Bivol have that? I mean, boxing gets me confused. I'm sorry. I regress. But Ken, I'm sorry. I digress. I regress, I recess, and I digress. Boxing just confused me. I turned to my son, my poor son. I turned to my son at ringside, and I said, WBA light heavyweight title, isn't Bivol? Did somebody steal that? Like in the midst of the night, did somebody go in his house and steal that title from him? I didn't see it happen in the ring.
Reminds me of today's political system. Never mind what you think you know, it's what we tell you you know. Nothing seems to matter. This guy's got a title. We'll take that. Thank you. This guy's going to be the champion now. It makes no sense. There isn't a person on earth that doesn't recognize Bivol and Benavidez as Beterbiev as the two champions that have all the titles. But like you would say, I digress. Jared Anderson, hot young prospect at heavyweight, suffers his first loss. I've been dying to talk about this one with you. Martin Bakole knocks him down once in the first, twice in the fifth before he stops him in the fifth. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but I'm curious to hear more in depth about. Did Jared Anderson get? I know you definitely have been critical of him in the past, just in the sense that he's not as hyped as some of the promoters might have you believe or want you to believe. But did Jared Anderson get exposed more than Bakole showed what he's capable of? He had the loss against, like you said, against Michael Hunter, but did they underestimate Bakole massively? And was he better than we thought, or was Jared Anderson worse, or combination of both?
Yeah, all of the above. You're right on the button. They massively underrated Bakole, but they also, and I did too. They fell in love with what they thought they were seeing. A young heavyweight that there's a lot of openings in this heavyweight division, a lot of older guys that are going to move out, and they thought they had the guy. The only problem was they weren't seeing what they needed to see, the mistakes, the things that still weren't getting better. I touched on earlier that he was doing from a technical standpoint, and he was doing it against lower-level guys, building his record, but there was still mistakes, and they didn't see that those mistakes that he's making against the lower-level guys that he's not paying a price for, he will pay a price when he fights the next level, the top guys, and he paid that price. So did he get exposed? Yeah, he got exposed in a way that he hadn't developed to the point they thought he had, that it wasn't just enough to be young and fast and athletic, and God, he showed a lot of heart. So that I'm not giving up on this guy. I wouldn't. But I just think that they missed the warning sign. But it's hard to see them because you're winning. Your eyes get filled with glitz. Your eyes get filled with stars. And you're seeing the next heavyweight champ, and everyone's telling you that. You drink the Kool-Aid. You know, it's hard not to. And you don't see you don't see the cliff that's in front of you. You just don't see it coming. And I'm in the training business. I'm supposed to see it. And that's what I was saying thought I was seeing. I wasn't knocking him to knock him. I wasn't even knocking him I was being constructively critical. That's what I do. To just say, yeah, I saw him winning fights, and I saw that there were certain things that he was still pulling straight back. He was still throwing punches from a little too far out. He was, like I said, he was still going back. There was opportunities to hit him, and it was with lower level guys where he could overcome it, and where sometimes he didn't get hit. But I saw the opportunity to get hit if the other guy had more confidence, if the other guy had more experience, if the other guy had more talent. And now everyone sees it. And now everybody, I was at ringside, everybody's down on him. Everybody's mad at Sugar Hill, the new trainer that trained him for this fight. I think that it's a terrible thing. Terrible. Really. Just wrong. And when I think something's wrong, I'm going to say it. And that's why I'm taking the time now. If people blame Sugar Hill, who's a good trainer, if they blame him because this was his first fight with him, Turki Al-Sheikh put them together. I even said on the air last week, Ken, you heard me. That's right. I said, I don't know what Turki sees in Anderson. I don't see it. Maybe he sees something I don't see. I said that. Even though I picked him to win, I thought he would get through this fight, like I said already, and I apologize.
I think you described it perfectly earlier. Hot, young, handsome, American heavyweight is good for business for everyone, period. And that's what they wanted to believe, that was the case. And unfortunately,
I get it.
It's not the case.
But it's terrible. What's not the case also, it's not Sugar Hill's fault. Yeah, he came in as the trainer. Yeah, he was there. But you know what was it was being in the wrong place at the wrong time for Sugar Hill, because this was the first. Yeah, Ken, this was the first time the guy stepped up. So Hill happened to be there. Hill wasn't there long enough to correct the mistakes that have been there. People think he created the mistakes because they think that all of a sudden those mistakes showed up. No. Oh my God, no. Those mistakes were there. I saw them. I wasn't not liking the guy. I wasn't liking what was not being improved and what I was seeing as far as being a heavyweight that was going to get ready to fight top guys. I wasn't liking that stuff. Not the kids, not him. It wasn't personal. It never is. It's business. And for them now to think, oh, somehow Sugar Hill screwed him up and made him not know how to fight anymore, gave him these mistakes. No, those mistakes were there. Sugar Hill inherited those mistakes. That was they were there when Sugar Hill got him for this fight. It's just that, as I said before, it hadn't been shown to the world yet because he hadn't fought the elite level, the next level of opposition to show it. And again, bad timing for Sugar Hill, because he comes in, finally they step him up in competition, and they didn't realize how steep this step was. Like I didn't. And Sugar Hill becomes the fall guy, where, oh, you screwed. No, he didn't screw it up at all. Again, I'm repeating myself, but I want it crystal clear. These mistakes were there. He inherited them when he took the job, Sugar Hill. He didn't have enough time to correct them. He took over this kid Anderson, who is a talented kid, is a game kid. He could be a champion someday. He showed me the heart of a champion. But he took him over with all the baggage that nobody realized was baggage. It was invisible baggage. Nobody understood all the things that he was carrying with him, the mistakes that would only be seen under a microscope. They couldn't be seen to the naked eye, or most naked eyes. They don't see it. And the microscope in boxing is when you get in the ring with a better level opponent. That's the microscope. And now everybody saw it. And it upset me to see people yelling at Sugar Hill, a good trainer, a guy that puts everything into it, a guy that's done a good job with every fight he's ever been with, to see him becoming the scapegoat. And like I said earlier, the fall guy, that is so wrong. That's just wrong, because he was just happened to be the guy that took the job when they were finally stepping up with a guy that could expose these mistakes. And if you give Sugar Hill a chance, I think he'll correct the mistakes. And what are the mistakes? Well, he got caught with uppercuts all night. And I tell you, Bakole did look like George Foreman. Big, strong, set his feet, allowed Anderson to make mistakes and then timed them. He showed experience. He showed determination. He showed, a hunger for his country, a pride to make it for his country. He's 32 years old. He knows now's the time to do it. And he did it. He had an opportunity. He was ready. He knew what he was going to do, and he did it. He set his feet. He allowed the quicker Anderson, the quicker hands, the quicker feet, the more athletic, the more dimensional, who could move to the sides, in and out, all of that. He allowed him to make mistakes right in front of him, and he made him pay. He timed him. He went straight back. He timed him. He came straight in from a little too far away. He timed him. He didn't move his head. He got hit with the uppercut late in the middle. He timed him. The only thing Bakole did wrong, which is crazy that I would bring anything up he did wrong, because he was tremendous, and he's a tremendous person. And I hope he becomes heavyweight champ. That's how much he impressed me. And that's how much I want to apologize for being wrong about him. But The only thing I was seeing he was doing wrong, there were rounds that Anderson was trying to steal after being dropped so many times, but Anderson was still taking them. Obviously, every punch hit him, moved him, and he was taking the hardest shots. He don't punch the way Bakole does. He's not a big puncher that way, but he can punch, but not like Bakole, obviously. And punches are born, they're not made. And I've said that many times, and it plays out when you watch. Anderson got hurt. He was getting hit with the harder punches. They were affecting him. They were all affecting him. But he was fighting back. And after the first couple rounds when he got dropped, there were rounds where he would come back at the end of the round and try to steal the round, where he punched in between some of the big shots of Bakole and caught him with right hands and punched right in between. But he didn't affect him. Bakole has a good chin. He didn't affect him. But he caught him. He caught him with some good. And there was some rounds there I was thinking, gee, he might steal some of these. Even though I thought there was still Bacole's rounds, he might steal some of these rounds because the way that he's coming back at the end of the rounds. But it wasn't to be because he was too easy to hit, too easy to time, and Bakole was ready for he wasn't letting this escape. He wasn't letting this go between his fingers. And he wasn't even thinking it's going to go to the judges where you could get a bad decision, which we got, where you get them. We got a horrible decision that night, a horrible one. I'll talk about that later. But where he knew he was going to take it in his own hands, and he did. And again, Anderson gave him those opportunities. His game is played against him. He was once he got hurt, he was still trying to get back in the fight. He was coming at Bakole, and he was walking right into the, propeller of the plane. He was walking into, walking right into it because
exactly
Bakole
right.
was, he was set, he was ready, and Anderson coming at him, it was exactly what the doctor ordered for Bakole, not for Anderson, but for Bakole. Bacole's, Anderson was quicker. He was using the jab well. He was, he was showing his athleticism again until one of those technical mistakes way before Sugar Hill ever was in the mix. One of those technical mistakes that he got away with in the past came home to roost. And coming in from too far. Again, going back on a straight line, giving space to somebody to time you, because you're throwing a little bit too soon. And Bakole was, like I said, he was ready for everything. Just tremendous execution of a fight plan by Bakole. He landed so many big shots. If Anderson didn't have the heart he had, he would have been gone a couple rounds earlier. The referee did the right thing, stopping the fight when he did, because Bakole was only going to continue to land and not land little shots.
He had a huge weight advantage over him. I want to say like 30 pounds. Those shots were unbelievably
he was about
hard.
Yeah, what was he, 280 and Anderson was 250? Somewhere, right?
Yep, in that context, that's exactly right.
It was like Rock'em Sock'em Robots in spots, though. It was a good fight. Even though it turned out to be, what it was, and Bakole wound up dominating, it was there were moments that were competitive.
Yep.
There were rock'em sock'em moments back and forth, and because of the heart of Anderson, it was a good fight.
To your point about the fighters are born not made, he hit him with a couple short little uppercuts that were like no more than like 6 inches, and all I could think was like what you would say, like, Jesus, you couldn't teach someone to hit like that. That guy has so much power in those shots. If he hits you clean, as you saw, the first knockdown, it looked like a little inconsequential uppercut, and my God, he knocked him into the friggin' fifth row. He was just, he was on Queer Street as soon as he got hit with the shot.
And the one thing that I didn't finish my thoughts earlier, and you reminded me now, that I thought at the time could come back to nip him in the backside if he didn't knock him out, and Bakole that was, was he couldn't miss with the right uppercut. Couldn't miss. But when he landed it, he didn't put the left hook with it. I have a belief and when I train a fighter, I believe if you can hit him with 2 good shots, don't hit him with 1. If you can hit him with 3, don't hit him with 2. I mean, it's pretty simple, right?
I love that expression.
Yeah, and he was hitting him with that right uppercut, and the left hook should have been right behind it, like bang, bang, like bang, bang, right behind. And then it's hard to survive those 2 hard, very hard to. The one was hard to survive. I mean, he was hurting him with it, but he was surviving. He was going other rounds, Anderson, again, because of his great heart. He was going other rounds. But if he would have put the left hook behind it, the fight might have ended earlier. And that was the one thing that I was saying. And to Bakole's people, they've done a great job. Put the left hook behind that uppercut the next time you fight, because it'll come in handy. Don't hit him with 1 hard one when you can hit him with 2 or 3. But at the end of the day, George Foreman is the only thing I can say to describe Bakole. That was really reminiscent of the great big George Foreman. And another thing I think hurt Anderson, a false sense of security, where you fought so many guys that have been picked. And all the heavyweights do it. All the fighters do it. It's not just him. I'm not saying him. I'm just talking about him now. All these prospects, you build them up. You give them easy fights, and then you hope to groom them where you in degrees, you give them tougher, and then they're ready. He didn't really get the degrees of tougher. He kind of missed, and I don't think that's his fault. I think that's, there's responsibility for other people in that. And to get you ready. And I don't think he was psychologically ready for this kind of fight, because he did have a false sense of sort of security that he was maybe better than he thought he was, in a way that he's beaten all these guys, and he wasn't really in his mind ready that this guy Bakole, a guy named Martin Bakole, who had been stopped once in his career, would be the guy to take him to that place. And I don't think he was mentally ready for that. Not that it had anything to do, Bakole just won the fight. But I don't think he was mentally geared, having fought the kind of guys where it's like his guys were taking care of, here's another, we'll be okay. Because it's been written that way. It's been that way. That's been the pattern. That's been the script. We get ready, we fight a guy, we win.
Quick question for you regarding the Bakole fight. What does this say about Michael Hunter's skill set? And Michael Hunter is like one of the nicest guys in the division. I really like him.
I always knew him. His father was a terrific fighter. He was a troubled guy, his father. It was very sad. But he was a terrific fighter, special in some ways. He beat a lot of good fighters. He was a small heavyweight. He beat big heavyweights. He had a tragic ending. It was very sad. Michael had to deal with that. Michael came from that kind of background, overcame that. Michael was an Olympian. Michael is a very talented, I don't know that he's put it all together and gotten the most out of it, but he's I think he fought a draw with Povetkin, who was my former fighter, who was a heavyweight champ of the world. I think he fought a draw with him, but Hunter is he's got good hand speed. He knows how to fight. He's a very talented guy. And obviously Bakole has improved since then. Fighters do get better. And that's how, if I was talking to Anderson, I would say that. I'd say, this guy got stopped, and look, he improved. He got to this place. He got his opportunity, and he made the most of it. You have the same opportunity to be on the same path, that you can take this any way you want to take it. You could take it as just a thing that you don't want to even think about, a thing that you're angry about, or you could take it as an opportunity to get better, an opportunity to correct things that need to be corrected, an opportunity to challenge yourself to how good you can be, and to bring out things in you that hadn't been brought out. It didn't have to be brought out because it was too easy. Now it's not too easy. That's what I would say to that young fighter. Anyway.
You were right. Michael Hunter had a draw. You were right against Povetkin, a draw against Jerry Forrest that I know was disappointing to him, and he lost to Alexander Usyk. But like I said, he's such a nice kid and a gentleman. Every time I've spoken to him, I'm impressed with his kindness and his authenticity. Just seems like a good dude. Anyway, I was just curious what you thought.
Like I said, he was a good fighter. Good fighter and overcame a lot in life.
Yep. All right, let's get on to the next fight here. Isaac Pitbull Cruz against Jose Valenzuela.
No, you're skipping Ruiz and Miller.
Sorry. You're right. I've been dying to discuss this
all
one.
Right.
Andy Ruiz and Big Baby Miller fight to a majority draw. So much to discuss here. Second fight in like 5 years for Andy Ruiz. I would say this, and I know his people get very sensitive, but it just doesn't seem to me like Andy's that serious. Like, I think in his mind he wants to be that guy, but he just doesn't seem to conduct himself like that. And I like him. I mean, I hope he does well, but he just seems to show up in like random times. He's not in the best shape. And obviously Jarrell Miller has his own history and said, you know, he was griping. I know what you said on Twitter, so I'm going to turn it over to you and not talk to the decision and let you discuss the controversy. But it's interesting to hear Miller complain about the judges and how unfair things are coming off as like second or third PED suspension. It's just very rich to complain about anything. The fact that he's still allowed to fight. And, you know, by all accounts, Jarrell Miller's a nice guy too, but the facts are the facts. And I don't know, this fight just had so many subplots and so many twists and turns. I'm dying to hear your thoughts about the decision and the fight itself.
You could take this stance and you wouldn't be really wrong. I'm not going to take it, but you could take the stance that you just touched on. That Miller shouldn't even be in the ring anymore. With all the times that he failed PED tests, all the times that, you know, he's come up dirty, that in any other sport he would have been banned for life.
One quick side note about that. They weren't like, oh, I had tainted meat and they found trace amounts. No, he got caught for like 3 or 4 different substances each time. Like
serious.
Like EPO, HGH, testosterone. Like, I mean, he had everything. I guess he was like, these tests don't really work. Give me everything. But yeah, so there isn't even a leg to stand on. It's like, yeah, I did all this. I don't know. Just in boxing, there has to be more integrity.
Well, it isn't, unfortunately. Boxing doesn't police itself too well.
Nope.
And that's one of the problems. And one of the reasons why I said we need a national commission to try to do that.
Exactly.
But to get back to Miller, he has blown opportunities. He's blown millions of dollars, everything, to chance to make millions of dollars. And look, all on him, where he cheated. And if you want to be a person that says, hey, I don't feel bad about this decision, he shouldn't even be in the damn sport. I can't argue with you. The only thing I can say is what I believe in and where I would make an argument on this behalf. We're a country that believes in forgiveness. Yeah, he got more than one chance. He got more than 2. He got more than 3. That's a lot. That's pushing the envelope. But we are a country of compassionate people. We believe in second, sometimes third, maybe fourth chances. We believe in that. And we are a country that recognizes the great, great strength and happening of something called redemption. I recognize that. I am a great believer. I've been asked to go to prisons to talk to the inmates, and when I do, I talk about this: the power of redemption. And for me, I'm going to put aside, and I know it's hard to put that stuff aside for a lot of people. I get it. I'm not saying you're wrong. If you say, Teddy, you shouldn't defend the guy. I'm defending him in the way that he got in the ring. He was clean as far as we know, and he had a chance for redemption. He came in 30 pounds lighter than his last fight. For him, that's in shape. He was in shape. He could still get lighter, but he was in shape. He was in better shape than Ruiz. That's what was the difference. He was in better shape than Ruiz. He took a terrible beating with a big punch of Dubois, got stopped in late in the fight, took an awful beating, came back. He got punished. He was punished where he lost out on possibly making. He's been punished. He has given a pound of flesh to a certain degree where it's ironic that these guys kind of switch places. That it's kind of like that movie, that with Dan Aykroyd and with Eddie Murphy switching places.
Trading places.
It's trading. It's funny because Miller was the guy who had the big fight, $5 million, whatever it was, to fight Joshua in Madison Square Garden for the title. He comes up dirty. Ruiz steps in, couple week notice, pulls off the upset, knocks out Joshua, gets $5 million, and then gets another huge payday after that, maybe around $10 million, whatever, in the rematch. And then Ruiz, of course, blew that because he went up and wait for the rematch. He let the money go to his head.
I think it was $13 million
went up
for
and
the
wait.
second fight in Saudi. It was astronomical amount of money. 5 for the first, 13 for the second, $18 million over the course of a year.
It's a lot of hamburgers. A lot of hamburgers. And at the end of the day, Ruiz stepped in, traded places, stepped in. He benefited. He did the job. Miller was on the out, looking in. He went through a few more suspensions. Looked like his career was over. In other sport, it probably would have been over. Boxing doesn't police itself. But he goes over. He fights Dubois. Dubois gets redemption for his bad showings against Joyce, where he gave in, against Usyk, where he gave in, even though there was the controversy with the low blow, he still mentally fell apart. And then he redeems himself against Miller, who was very tough that night, kept coming. But Dubois redeemed himself. Miller got a chance for redemption. I am of the belief that unless you're a serial killer or unless you're, along the lines of doing bad things to children and a rapist or those just kind of crimes that are, beneath the soul of any good human being, beneath it. Unless you're one of those people, I believe that everyone has a shot or should get a shot for redemption if they're willing to pay the price. He paid the price. He paid the price in losing out on all these things, then getting beat up by Dubois, where he got concussed in that fight. He comes back. He loses 30 pounds. He did something about it. He didn't just cry about it. He lost 30 pounds. He comes in this fight, and he represented him. This represented a chance to possibly get back, where it looked like he could never get back, to possibly get back to that mountain, a chance to climb that mountain again. And it's the great story of redemption. I love that story. I love it. And I was happy for him. Not that I was happy that Ruiz lost. No. But I was just happy for Miller. Ruiz was not in the best shape. You could see it. I think he took him for granted. I think he took him a little bit off the Dubois fight. Ruiz does have a problem with discipline as far as getting himself really in top shape. For him, I think he was in good enough shape for maybe the opponent he thought he was facing. He didn't realize that he was fighting a better conditioned Miller who was determined. I don't think not that I feel sorry for him, because that's his job to be ready for that. I'm not trying to put sympathy out there for Ruiz. I'm just telling you, from my perspective, I don't think he was ready physically or mentally for what Miller was ready to bring. Ruiz wasn't ready to bring that. And the first 3 rounds, Ruiz showed to be the better fighter. Faster hands, better technically, more versatile, setting traps, counter-punching, getting off first, inside, outside. He was showing spurts of being that talented fighter that Ruiz is. He's a talented fighter. But I was watching, and it reminded me, my son reminded me, Dad, this reminds me of your saying, watching a puddle on a hot summer day, and it starts to evaporate right in front of you. And I said, you're right, bud. Ruiz became that puddle on a hot summer day, and he started evaporating. And Miller was the sun to evaporate him. Miller knew what he wanted to do. He was going to apply pressure the same way he did against Dubois, but it didn't work out as well. But he was going to apply pressure. He was in better shape this time. So with the pressure, he could move his hands more. He was going to apply pressure and try to evaporate Ruiz physically and emotionally and mentally. He was trying to impose his physicality and his will on Ruiz. Miller had a 300-pound guy coming at him from the first bell to the last bell for 12 rounds. And it affected him. The first 3 rounds, like I said, Ruiz clearly the better fighter. Quicker hands, everything. And Miller lost the first 3 rounds. And he wasn't punching enough. He was being that immovable object. But he was laying down a game plan. He was laying down a gauntlet. He was laying down something that he thought would work for him. And he was right. A pattern to put in Ruiz's mind that I'm coming all night. And if you aren't in shape, you got a problem. If you're not ready, you got a problem. And he had a problem. The only problem is boxing has a bigger problem. Bad judges. I don't know if they're corrupt or they're just incompetent, but they hurt Miller. Now, some people say, Teddy, you shouldn't stand up for him. I'm standing up for any fighter that gets in that ring and deserves to have his damn hand raised and doesn't get it raised because of either corruption or incompetence. I'm standing up for him. I'm standing up for him. And after the 3rd round, Miller won every round. Yeah, I said it. Clear your ears out, people. You want to yell at me? You want to get mad at me? Go ahead. He won every round. Maybe one close one here and there. He started now pressing behind his jab. He started moving his hands. He started outworking Ruiz. He saw Ruiz was that proverbial, boulder going downhill. He pushed it. He pushed it downhill. And to give it more momentum, to go downhill even faster. And that's what he did. He came in behind his jab. Yeah, he got hit some shots, but the punches became less and less and less from Ruiz. And more and more and more.
That's exactly what I saw.
Pressed behind the jab. You're right. He went to the body. He went to the head. He landed big shots. Ruiz landed some. He landed some big shots too. But Miller, I think if Miller could have had a little more in the gas tank, he might even stop Ruiz because he couldn't quite. It was like getting a car to to 65 miles an hour on the highway. He couldn't get it to 80. If he could have got it to 80, the car wouldn't go to 80. It just wasn't ready to go to 80. The car wasn't equipped. Sam, it wasn't ready. His car wasn't ready to go to 80. But if it was ready to go to 80, I think he gets rid of Ruiz possibly, even though he's a game guy. But he won the next 9 rounds. He won the next 9 rounds on my scorecard. And they robbed him. They made it a draw. It was a disgrace. It was a horrible, horrible. Yeah, there was a bad decision every once in a while, and they always come. Some worse than others. But this was a bad one. There was one a month ago. Everyone went nuts. That wasn't a bad one. I agreed that the guy probably should have won. But the more I thought about it, I forget their names, Ken. The more I thought about it, one guy was a boxer. The other guy was coming forward. He was older. He had fought for the world title 3 times. And this time, the 4th time, he finally got the title. I was happy for him. But it wasn't as bad. It wasn't a Brinks robbery. It wasn't that bad. The other guy outboxed him out the outside. But the other guy didn't really do a lot. He pot-shotted him. He counter-punched. He was very conservative, very defensive-minded guy, but I still thought technically he won the fight. But the more I thought about it afterwards, it wasn't even a fight to get that crazy about. The other guy could have earned it just by being more aggressive. Yeah, technically the other guy was the sharpshooter, was the cleaner boxer, but the other guy pressed and drew more and had moments. So I don't even. I dealt with it. We talked about it. I agreed that he probably should have got it, but it wasn't anything like this. And I know some people will say, "Oh, Teddy, why you defended a guy who's a cheat?" Listen, as far as I know, he didn't cheat that night. And how many opportunities did you get in your life? Maybe you got. We don't know about it. Maybe you got 2 or 3 or 4. I don't know, but he got the opportunity. He made the most of it. I respect that. He lost the weight, and he didn't cry afterwards. Not that he has a right to cry the way that he's with his track record, but he didn't cry afterwards. But I'm telling you, I'm here to cry for him. He got robbed. And I was near the people sitting ringside that are with Ruiz. I'm not going to name names. They're people I like them. They've been around the game. I know them for many years. And they were quiet. You know why they were quiet? And they were screaming for him to move his hands more down the stretch. But they were quiet because they thought he lost. And you heard the boos. They were booing. I don't know if there was enough boos for what I thought really this represented, which was just a horrible, horrible, horrible treatment of Miller, and just another black eye for the sport of boxing. And like my late great friend Bert Sugar, the great writer and boxing aficionado with the hat, with the cigar, Bert would say, Teddy, the problem, it's another black eye for boxing, but the problem is boxing is now the Cyclops. It has no more eyes to blacken. And you know what? It reminded me of that. So some people agree with what I said, maybe some will. I don't care. I'm just telling you what I think. No matter what the repercussions are for people who say why I should or shouldn't say. It's a free country. We say what we're allowed to say and what I believe is worth saying. I believe it was worth saying what I just said. Great finish back and forth in the 5th. It was a good fight. Great finish back and forth in the 5th. I just made a note to myself. And again, I thought it was very interesting and ironic that Miller is trying to get revenge on a guy who took his place in a way.
Yeah, good point.
This is the guy that stepped in at Miller's own fault, of course, but stepped in to get everything, to get all the spoils of victory that could have been Miller's. He gets them. Miller goes on a path of downward spiral, and now he comes full circle back to where he faces the guy that took his place. like that movie I said early, Trading Places. And so very, very interesting night, very interesting fight. I also made a note. I don't know his name, Ken. Maybe you can help me. I want to give a credit and a shout out to the referee that reffed this fight. He is a solid, consummate pro. I wish we had more. We have too many refs that are egomaniacs, too many refs that don't know what they're doing. They're not in position. They want to be seen more than the fighters, whatever. And we have some good ones, don't get me wrong, but we should have more good ones. It's an important role in this dangerous sport. And that referee, he did a great job. He always does a good job. I don't know his name, but he's just a solid, like I say about a fighter, a solid fighter. That's a compliment. He is a solid ref, always in the right position. He doesn't get in the way of the fight. He only gets there when you have to,
Thomas
or when he needs
Taylor.
to. Well, that's it. Say it again, Ken. So
Thomas
people hear.
Taylor.
Thomas Taylor.
Works
Thomas
a lot
Taylor.
in California. They like him there.
Remember that commercial? Thomas Taylor, this bud's for you.
Exactly.
This shout out is for you, Thomas. Great job. I wish everyone did just a steady, professional type job that you do. I wish everyone did that. Anyway, Miller was like I always talk about the tide coming in. He just kept coming. 300 pounds of tide. That's a lot. He just came in washing Ruiz out to sea. He really did. He really, boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, it was just so horrible. But anyway, good fight. Good, again, unbelievable card. I'd like some fans out there to tell me if they can remember ever back in the day when we got great fights, some of the great fights in the 80s and stuff. But do you ever remember an undercard being this good? I don't. And all these undercards that the new face of boxing, Turkey Al-Sheikh, does, all are the same. They're all the same with solid fights from top to bottom. So, another exciting fight. Bring it to us, Ken. The one that you were talking about earlier.
Is Cruz and Jose Valenzuela. Huge upset. Beats his fellow Mexican. Great win for Valenzuela, coming off in 22 and 23 at back-to-back losses, a knockout, and then a loss to Chris Colbert, who he came back and avenged that with a knockout himself.
He got robbed against Colbert, but he didn't cry about it. He got revenge. He knocked him cold. Knockout of the year. Knockout of the year. And this kid is just a work in progress.
And now he's working just tough Mexican. And Isaac Cruz is, he went the distance with Gervonta Davis, which not many people can do. Super tough, durable, but Valenzuela, put it on him. Upset, huge upset. How'd you like that one?
I had him win a 7-5. The crowd booed. Great Mexican fans. They probably think of Cruz as more Mexican because of his style, that he's always coming forward. Oh, and the Mexican fans love that. All fans love that. But the Mexican fans love that. To them, he was more Mexican maybe in their mind. But they're both Mexican. They're both tremendous fighters. They both fight with heart. They both fight with pride. Both fight with tradition. I really like this kid. He's a southpaw. I like his story. I like where he came from. I like Pitbull. Great story where he came from. He was starting to become the Mexican fighter of the time that the fans were really, really starting to get around, the Mexican fans, because of his style. They were getting very excited about him. His popularity was going through the roof. Like I said, the fans booed. They thought that he won the fight. Valenzuela give his trainer Robert Garcia. I believe it's Robert Garcia was in the corner.
That's right.
He's done a great job. He had a great fight plan. He had the right fight plan from the beginning. You're fighting a guy who's coming in sometimes a little reckless, but always coming with big, wide shots. Always coming. You can't just run around the ring. You got to move, you got to control space, but you got to be set to punch. That's what Valenzuela did as a southpaw. He drew a line in the canvas. He said, I'm not going to let him cross this line without catching him first. Because of his length, because of his size, he knew, and his style, Valenzuela knew that he could catch Cruz about 6 inches before Cruz could catch him. 6 inches a lot in boxing. 6 inches of length. 6 inches of distance. That he could catch him if he's ready to punch at the right distance. He could catch Cruz before Cruz could get into his station of punching, his area that he could be effective. He knew he had that edge, but he had to execute it, and his trainer had him ready for that proper fight plan, for the proper way of going about this, where he was set, he was moving, he was changing range. Cruz came in, he would go out just enough to keep that distance where he had an edge. Just enough. Every once in a while, Cruz got in too quick and caught him. He got in, caught him going backward. That's what Cruz does. That's his forte. That's his Sunday punch. The big hook, looking to push it back with his pressure, get tall guys to stand tall, go back, and then he goes with you, and he catches you going back. He did it a few times. Not enough. Valenzuela's defense was good. He was, again, his footwork was great. He controlled space. He controlled the right space where he kept a cushion between him and Cruz, where he had the edge, where he could get off before Cruz could get to him, where he could hit Cruz before Cruz could hit him. It's like somebody coming up a hill. If you had a kid on a hill, and you had kids coming up the hill, and the kids on top of the hill are throwing something, a rock or something, at the kids at the bottom, they can hit the kid at the bottom of the hill before the kid can ever get to the top of the hill. It's hard to get to the top of the hill that way. Yeah, you could avoid the rocks and get there eventually, or take the rocks and get banged up and get bloody and still get there. Yeah, that you could do that too. But the guy at the top of the hill has the edge if he knows how to use it, to throw the rocks from the top of the hill. He threw the punches from the top of the hill, Valenzuela. That's what he did. And again, credit to him and his trainer. Great job. And he was consistent. I said from the beginning, he could win this fight as soon as it started. I told my son, he'll win this fight if he can be consistent, if he can handle the pressure and not cave in, not give in, not fight Cruz's fight at any point. Keep it on the outside, catch him coming in, make him miss the big shots, don't get caught going back too much, and don't let him get inside where he can work. Tie him up or turn him, but don't let him get to where he wants to be on the inside. Keep it on the outside. If you could do that long enough, consistently enough, you can win this fight. He put punches together. Here was the difference. Ken, I want to explain to why they booed, why they thought, besides they loved Cruz. Okay, I get it. But they booed, and a lot of people thought Valenzuela lost. Like I said, I thought he won. And I know he won. He won because of the rules of boxing, the art of boxing. He was scoring not the biggest punches all the time, but clean punches more regularly. And he was showing ring generalship. But the reason why some people didn't think he won, and I told my son this at ringside, and the reason why they booed the decision and thought Cruz won, what Valenzuela was doing was quiet. He was quietly controlling range, southpaw, pop, 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 pop. Quietly, put them together, uppercut, picking the right spots, 1-2, bop, 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 jab, keeping range, measuring them a little, pop, 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 nice and quiet. He was quietly scoring. He was quietly winning rounds. He was quietly getting to the point where he was going to achieve his lifetime goal to be a champion. And the other guy was loud. The other guy was loud. The other guy was he had the amplifiers. He had the cymbals. He had the drums. This guy was playing the violin. He was playing the harp. He was pulling all the strings. This other guy, Cruz, was hitting the drums. He was banging the bongos. he had the big giant speakers. It was blowing your eardrums out. He was doing loud stuff. He was throwing punches that got your attention. He was throwing punches that had noise behind them. And people pay attention to noise. People they pay attention to noise. They get taken in by noise. The fans got taken in by the noise. The big shots. They weren't noticing that a lot of them were missing. A lot of them were being blocked. That the other guy was quietly, in the midst of the drums. If you just listened, if you had the ear, if you were disciplined enough to have the ear to listen, just listen. You can hear it now. You can hear the strings. You can hear the harp. You could hear that beautiful music that Valenzuela was making and that Cruz was trying to drown out with that loud music. And that's what the fight was. I said it to my son. He said, "Oh, my God, Dad, you're right." I said, "Yeah, that's what this fight is, and that's why I hope he gets it. And I hope the judges do what they didn't do in the Miller fight. They get it right. And I got to give them credit. I tore them apart a few minutes ago, the judges. Rightfully so. But now I'm going to give them credit. The judges for that fight, they did a great job. They didn't get caught up in the noise. I don't know if part of it was they were trying to make up because they were embarrassed by that decision. A lot of people were rumbling about how bad it was. I don't know if they might have been trying to make up for that. I don't know. But they got it right. It was the kind of fight that you couldn't get caught up in the noise. You had to just watch what was actually happening. You had to put earplugs in. And just see what was happening. And what was happening was a masterful performance by the kid Valenzuela. Man, and I love this kid. I love Cruz too, but I love this kid, what I know about him in the way that he got knocked out. He got robbed. He didn't get discouraged. It hurt him. He didn't make a scene. I watched him. He didn't jump up and down and try to curse people out and call people out. No, he went back to the gym. He got the rematch, and he came back, and he was even better than he was the first time that he got in a fight that he got robbed. He was even better the next time. He made up his mind. I won't get robbed this time because I won't allow, because he allowed the first one to be close enough to get robbed. He made up his mind, I will improve. I will take this as an opportunity to get better, to be better. I wish all people could be that way, the way this kid, all people, not just fighters. The way I wish they all could be like this. He didn't ask for nothing for free. He didn't say, I'm entitled to something. He didn't say nothing. He said, give me another chance, and I'll do it from here. I'll make sure that I don't miss out on this next opportunity. And he didn't. Him and his trainer, Garcia, came in so prepared, and they stayed with it. They stayed with the game plan, the right game plan, all night long, through the bongos, through the drums, through the echoes of the night, through all the big giant punches. They stayed the course. And they punched in between the white shots, even on the inside sometimes. For the most part, they kept it on the outside, which was where they had to win the fight. Cruz was not going to win this fight on the outside. He was going to win the fight by coming from the outside inside and by throwing. And Cruz hurt himself down the stretch. But it was to the credit of Valenzuela, who was in great shape and who was quietly landing shots all night on Cruz, and it affected him. The last several rounds, Cruz stopped moving his hands. So you can complain all you want. Cruz stopped moving his hand. And when Cruz, with his style, doesn't move his hands, you got a problem. Houston, we have a problem. When you got, that would be like a fish that stops swimming. If a fish stops swimming, he got a problem. And when Cruz, the punching machine that he is, stops throwing punches, which he stopped the last few rounds, he's not Cruz anymore. He's not Pitbull anymore. He's just a regular guy. And that hurt him. That hurt him down the stretch. Valenzuela earned that fight. I had it 7-5, but he earned that fight. He earned it. And I'm very happy for him. Cruz will get another shot. He's a very, very fun guy to watch. He's a real champion's heart, all of that. But he'll get another chance. But for now, Valenzuela earned his title.
Yep. All right. Main event. Terence Crawford gets a very close decision over a very game Israil Madrimov. I was personally kind of surprised that Madrimov was as good. You had said that he was really good. Just at 10-0, I can't believe the fight that he gave Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford moving up in weight classes. He captures his fourth divisional championship. Man, it's just Terence Crawford's so tough. And to your point about the speakers versus the music, I mean, at times Terence Crawford was just unloading, but it was like loud symphony. It was just that especially in the last round, the combinations that Terence was throwing, all with such bad intentions, all just so crisp, so sharp. But I got the feeling that even Terence thought that Madrimov was better than what he anticipated. Not that he underestimated him, but that was just the vibe that I got watching him in that last round. He came out guns blazing, and he gets a very close decision, 115-113 on two cards, 114-112. So that last round was critically important, and Terence did what he had to do.
Ken, was it 114-112
Sorry,
or 116-112?
114, 14, my apologies. 115-113 two times, and 116-112. One interesting thing is I thought Eddie Hearn was in, by the way, every single promoter of consequence was at the fight, which was interesting to see with Turki Al-Sheikh there promoting the fight. But Eddie Hearn afterwards saying that, he was acting outraged. I was like, 16-12 is not that, 2-round difference, not that big a deal, but he was doing what he had to do as a promoter. But I didn't think, I thought the scores were like right on the screws in terms of accuracy, but dying to hear your thoughts on this one. How'd you like the fight? What'd you think of the decision?
No, it was a good fight. They were all good fights for the most part, all different. There was intrigue in this fight. More of a chess match early on, and some people don't like chess. It's too slow. But it was a lot of thinking. There had to be, because if you don't think in this sport, you get hurt. Crawford was aware of the size difference, that Madrimov, is carrying the power of a junior middleweight. He was aware of that, and aware of what a lot of people weren't. Like, the guy's only got 10 fights. No, he's got 300 amateur fights. And he comes from a part of the world where the people are hard, where they're formed in a hard way, in a serious way, in a disciplined way, not in a way of any entitlement, in a way that you earn your place, in a way that you become steel to a certain degree. You become that sword I talk about that gets forged into the molten steel to become battle ready. They are battle ready. They are proud. They grow up with a principle code of an honor, discipline, and they usually carry that. Better Beef is one of those guys. I think Bevo has that, but he fights his style where you might not know he has that kind of mental iron, if you will. But he does. And Madrimov, those are things that nobody could know about him. You don't see those things in a record. you just see the 10-0 and say it's too little amount of fights. But like I said, 300 amateur fights, international fights, fighting fighters that if it was in the pros, they would be rated fighters. That's how good the level of amateur opposition he was fighting in those 300 fights. So he was much more than met the eye. And he was something else. The reason why I said that it would be a solid fight and he would represent himself so well. And Crawford would win, but he wouldn't be a pushover. He's a solid guy that doesn't get outside himself. That's what won the night for him because the stock went up. He lost the fight, but he won the night where he did what wasn't expected, to go the distance and be competitive enough where he pushed Crawford. And he did. And that's a great thing to be able to say that you pushed a great fighter. He pushed Crawford. He pushed him out of his comfort zone. Not that you have to push hard with Crawford because he's a junkyard dog in that ring in all the good ways. He's a fighter. He's proud. He is that guy. He really is. And anyone who thinks he's dropped off because of this, then they're foolish. They're foolish. Would I say that maybe you hit the brakes or you pump the brakes on going up another weight class? Yeah. Yeah, give him a chance to feel out this weight class, to acclimate to it, to step into it a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that's fair. But to be down on him? No, you could say, some people say ring rust, whatever. No, give credit to Madrimov. Madrimov, one of his greatest abilities was not to screw things up, not to get outside himself or ahead of himself, to stay contained, to stay steady, to stay disciplined. If he got ahead of himself too much, it would have been an easier fight for Crawford. He would have had opportunities to land cleaner punches. Madrimov, where he came up big, that people didn't realize defensively, changing distance, using his legs, moving his head when he had to. He wasn't easy to catch with a clean shot. He wasn't easy to catch at all. But it was his discipline. It was his control, his patience of not getting reckless. He was fundamentally sound. Like I said, he keeps his hands up. He doesn't get reckless. He throws his punches at the right distance, not from a distance where you can counter him. All of those things allowed him to have a good night against a great fighter and to represent himself and his country really, really, and his promoter really, really well. I think that the reason why I had Crawford winning, I could have had it 116, 112, or 115, 113. There were a lot of close rounds. I won't argue that. Where I wasn't sure which way to go. They were very close. The thing in the end that hurt Madrimov to get a decision was the same thing that kept him in the fight in an opposite way. It's the same thing that kept him in a fight and allowed him to have a good night and to extend the fight to the 12th round. He didn't throw enough punches. He didn't throw enough to win the fight. He didn't throw enough to win the rounds that Eddie Hearn might have thought he won. Okay, that's his opinion. I get it. You're backing your guy. And maybe you're right, because I just said there's a lot of close rounds. I don't argue that. That could have been even rounds, but I tried to pick somebody. But those close rounds, one or two could have went the other way and made it a little even closer. But it was close enough where Crawford won the rounds by being Crawford, by being a well-rounded, the more rounded fighter, the more skillful fighter, but by being busier. Madrimov was not busy enough to win that fight, but it's what allowed him to win the night. It's what allowed him to extend the night. It's what allowed him to be in the night. Because if he would have threw more, he might not have been in the close fight that he wound up being in. Because he might have given Crawford what he needed. Engagement. An opportunity to counter. You can't counter if the guy's giving you nothing to counter. He might have given Crawford a chance where he got a little reckless, a little careless. And Crawford, God, he knows how to take advantage of that. He's got the speed, he's got the power, he's got the combinations. He knows which ones to throw. And in some spots, he was just missing, just coming up short. But that was because of Matrimov's ability, his defensive acumen, to move, to step out, to dodge the bullet. It wasn't that Crawford was rusty. It was Madrimov was showing you that he knew what he was doing too, that he needs credit. He knew what the hell to do in there. But if he was busier, maybe he wins more rounds, but maybe, again, he leaves an opportunity for Crawford to do what he couldn't get done. Have him available enough in front of him where he could catch him cleaner. So Madrimov fought a smart fight, a controlled fight, a disciplined fight, a fight that he didn't get reckless, a fight that he didn't let get away from him, that kept him in the hunt. And again, if he did more, that a lot of people would have liked to see him move his hands more, it might not have been as good a night for him, even though that gives you a chance to win rounds. It also gives your opponent, who's as talented, to take advantage when you're punching. And I think Crawford might have done that. But at the end of the day, there was something going on here that also helped Madrimov and made it a more difficult night for Crawford, where Crawford really had to work, as he always does, but had to work really to make sure this fight didn't go the wrong way and didn't slip in any way away from him. Madrimov, in his awkwardly clever way, if you noticed all night, Madrimov was bouncing his hands up and down, bouncing in and out with his stance, with his legs, but bouncing his hands up and down, up and down. That wasn't an accident. Maybe it's part of his style, a habit, but I thought it worked for him in a way that was brilliant. At a way that hindered Crawford. And I think Crawford started getting wise to it a little at the end. Or maybe it was just at the end when they told him, his corner told him that the commentators had him losing at a certain point behind, that he got a little urgency and he just stepped it up. Maybe that was it. Or maybe he got wise to what I'm about to talk about, which was Madrimov, by moving his hands up and down, up and down, up and down. It mesmerized Crawford. It made Crawford think too much. It made Crawford pay too much attention to it and be a little too conservative. That Crawford is a guy who thinks, who x-rays everything, who gets the intel and then puts it into the computer, and then later in the fight he uses it. He's a cerebral guy anyway. But I think this made him more cerebral, maybe too cerebral, where when he saw all the bouncing, he thought about, I better watch this. I better see what he's got up his sleeve. I better take another look. And I thought when he was bouncing, the thing that he should have done was just punch through the bouncing gloves. Instead of just, I thought he got caught up in looking too much. And I think that's what Madrimov wanted him to do, where he got so involved in just thinking, what is this guy going to do? When's he going to? Let me time him. Let me wait for a move. I'll time him. I'll time him going out. I'll time him coming in. And he got so caught up, he outthought himself. Where when he was bouncing like that, Ken, pop, pop, pop. If he would have just punched into the bounce, if he would have just punched into the movement of the gloves, because the truth was he couldn't punch while he was bouncing. That's the truth. He couldn't punch. He had to steady to punch. And while he was bouncing, what it did was it froze up Crawford to the point where he didn't punch. So it worked for Madrimov in a positive way and a negative way for Crawford. If Crawford, again, with the bouncer, would have just punched into that bounce, I think he would have caught him. And I think he would have gained from that. He would have gained confidence and momentum and rhythm from that, where he would have kept it going. And who knows what that would have led to with Crawford, who's so good. I think that was the key for me. That was the key that allowed it to go 12 rounds and allow Madrimov to be there. And look, give Madrimov credit. For the most part, Crawford is the best switch hitter in boxing. He can fight orthodox or southpaw, but mostly nowadays he fights southpaw. He came out orthodox, then he went southpaw, stayed southpaw for the night, for the most part. And Madrimov was smart. He was using the southpaw killer, shooting right hands, caught him some right hands, caught him some uppercuts, but was shooting a nice straight right hand. And he was using it. He wasn't throwing a lot, but he was making sure what he did throw counted. And what he was making sure was he wasn't throwing from the wrong distance. He wasn't going to throw where it would make him available. It would cost him. He wasn't going to make it easy for Crawford. He was only throw very conservative, but that conservative approach kept him in the fight. And when he did throw, he made it count. And he landed right hands. And matter of fact, I thought there was a point later in the fight where Madrimov was landing some good right hands where Crawford might have been better served if he went back orthodox to take the right hand away instead of being in the southpaw stance. If he would have given up the southpaw stance for a minute, went back orthodox, he might have taken that right hand away. But him and his corner are great. They know what they're doing. They got the job done. No, I thought that was the key. The bouncing all night long, the awkward bouncing. If Crawford just would have, instead of thinking through it, if he would have punched through it, just punched through it, I think he would have caught him. It would have led to other things. The last round was interesting. The late rounds were interesting because Crawford is a junkyard dog. I always say that about him. He's a pit bull. And when push comes to shove, you can depend on him. And when he just had to get down and get it done, he got down, he got it done. He started moving his hands more. He started taking more chances. He started being more aggressive. And he made sure he took those late rounds. And it was a close fight. There were close rounds. There's no doubt about it. But he made sure that he closed the show in those late rounds with the championship pedigree, blood, attitude that Crawford has. And he did that. But I thought it was interesting in the final round where Madrimov decided suddenly for some reason, maybe like a Rocky movie, thought he was going to switch it up and he might have thought that he was behind, kind of told you what he thought versus maybe what his promoter thought. Madrimov kind of told you that he honestly probably thought he was behind and maybe he needed something big. And in the 12th round, he switched southpaw out of nowhere. I don't think the commentators, I don't know if they even picked up on it, but he switched southpaw out of nowhere, Madrimov, and it cost him because Crawford is that special guy that as soon as he did it, he knew what to do. And he landed like 2 or 3 consecutive uppercuts. Bang, bang, bang. 2 or 3 right in a row. And you know what that did? It did 2 things. It scored. It won the round for him. It caught Madrimov. And it taught Madrimov, don't be a southpaw anymore. Get out of the south. Because Madrimov immediately vacated the lefty stance. He didn't need any more proof to tell him, get out of there. Get out of that southpaw stance. As soon as he got hit those uppercuts, okay, I'm not being a southpaw no more this round. And he went right back to being orthodox. But I thought it was interesting. Here's my scorecard, Sam, if we can see it. That's my scorecard. I know people will look to murder me over it. I don't really care. But, again, full disclosure, a lot of close rounds. I had it 116, 112. Could have been 115, 113. Could even been 1 point if you want to do that. I don't think it was. I thought Crawford won the fight clear, did what he had to do down the stretch, did what he had to do when he realized the level of this guy, that, what the guy brought, how good the guy really was, or how potentially dangerous he could be, because the guy was not a reckless. He was not a bull in the China shop. Crawford, he gets rid of bulls in the China shop. He gets rid of them. He does like the Matador. He puts those he gores them right away. He gets rid of them. But this guy was smart. He was confident. He was controlled. There was no room for mistakes on Crawford's part or Matrimov's part. And both guys fought a smart fight, a controlled, a cerebral fight in a lot of ways. I thought Crawford took a lot of rounds just with the jab. I thought there was a lot of rounds where there wasn't much punching going on by either guy, but especially Madrimov. If he threw more, he might have got caught more. So he knew what he was doing, but he did not throw his hands a lot. There were a lot of rounds where, when that was happening, Crawford was, I thought, taking rounds that were not scintillating rounds, not exciting rounds, not rounds to write home to your mom about, but just rounds with his jab that was taking, that there wasn't a lot going on, but his jab gave him those rounds. I also thought, again, Crawford moved his hands more, and Crawford put his punches together much more than Madrimov did. And I thought that was the difference in grabbing rounds that Crawford grabbed. So at the end of the day, a good fight, a good performance by Madrimov, who will get other fights off of this. He's a quiet, solid, humble guy from everything I saw. And it was a good, it was a good night. It was really a spectacular night of fights. It really was. I made some notes here. First round, again, a lot of people are going to get mad when they see that I gave the first 3 rounds to Crawford. One of those rounds could have gone to Madrimov, or could have been a 10-point round, a 10-10 round. Yes, I make that concession. Yes, but I thought that Crawford just did a little more. Nothing eventful happened in those rounds. Nobody was getting hit much. But I just thought that the way he controlled the ring, the way that he used his jab in those rounds, that there wasn't much going on, that carried the round for Crawford in my eyes.
Yep. Well, like you said, great fight. Great card, entertaining from start to finish. Over in the UFC, Cory Sandhagen loses a tough unanimous decision to Umar Nurmagomedov. Really a one-sided fight, but closer than the cards reflected, I think. Umar Nurmagomedov stays undefeated, and it's sad to see, but Cory Sandhagen's become seemingly a bit of a gatekeeper now. That, you want to get to the next level, can you get past Cory? Okay, you did. On to the next level. Now the tests, as they always do in the UFC, continue to come fast and furious with step up in competition. Great fight. I loved every second of it. How'd you like the fight?
Cerebral fight, great fight. High level talent going at it. High level stuff. 2 guys that know their craft. Really great striking. The difference, first of all, Umar, he's a protege of maybe the greatest of all time, Khabib. And those guys from that region, boy, they know what to do on the mat. They're serious. But give them credit. Just like the great Khabib. They work on their striking too. They're known for the wrestling, the grappling, all that stuff on the floor. But man, this would not have been the fight it was for Umar if he wasn't so good at striking. Sandhagen is a real good striker. They're both well-rounded. Sandhagen is a well-rounded warrior, experienced guy, solid guy, doesn't beat himself, great kicks, great athleticism, great everything. Sandhagen is tremendous. Tremendous. He just proved how good Umar really is. He'd never really been tested. This was not to this level. This was his real coming out party, if you will, to be tested. Like, he's 17-0. Is he really the real deal? Is he really what we think he is, being Khabib's protege? Is he really that guy? Yeah, he is. Sandhagen, it took someone like Sandhagen to prove it, to test him, to really put the seal of approval on Umar that he is that damn good, because Sandhagen was that good. He was good with striking. His takedown defense was incredible. His moves, his scrambling on the mat was incredible. It's just that Umar's more incredible. Umar had the edge on the mat, no doubt about that. But he had to work. He had to work. And when they were on the mat, some spots, it was like high-level chess. I mean, it was genius stuff. It was so technical. It was so good. It was so good. And even though I'm not what the great commentators are in the UFC and all those great people are, I am not anywhere near understanding the nuances, the science of what goes on in the mat with the jiu-jitsu, with the grappling. But I know when I'm watching something that's good. And both these guys were good, but Umar was another level of good on the mat, and he was better in an area that Sandhagen had to win at, the striking. That was the difference. Sandhagen was great. He was using his jab. They both switched from orthodox to southpaw. Sandhagen with Trevor Whitman, who does a great job. He used to be in boxing. Now he's the big striking coach in the UFC. I remember when he was a kid in boxing coming up. He had some fighters on ESPN when I was calling the fights there years ago. He does a great job. He gave him good advice. Sandhagen was looking to get angles. He was using his legs not only to kick but to move on the bicycle to get angles, trying to keep Umar off balance, moving left, moving right, trying to get an angle where he could get something in, and Umar would not be set. But Umar dealt with it. Umar used his jab well, too. He counterpunched well. Umar put punches together a little bit better than Sandhagen did. Put them together in greater volume. He put more punches in bunches than Sandhagen did. He counted really well. There were close rounds, especially those first couple rounds, very close. But I gave every round to Umar. I know some people had it scored closer. I get it. All right. You want to make it 4-1? Go ahead. But I can't see going closer than that. I did have every round because I just thought Umar was better, a little better in the two areas that the fight was all about, in the striking area and on the mat, and probably surprised some people in the striking area. That was, again, the one area that Sandhagen was going to have to dominate, or at least have to win, in order to pull off an upset. And he wasn't able to do it because Umar was that good in the striking area. He was that good. And Sandhagen was. But Umar was too, and was just a little better in the areas that I said, putting them together a little bit more, counterpunching a little bit more. Both of their technique was really solid in a stand-up, really solid. I was very impressed with Sandhagen as, I'm not going to say he's a gatekeeper like you did. I'm going to say that he's a guy that could win a championship still on any given night if he's in there with a guy that's not quite as good as Umar. Umar is that good. And I think he's going to get only better now. I think this fight's going to make him better. He's going to really come into his own now. But Sandhagen, to me, is still an opportunity away from getting a phone call to be a champion, where he could beat anybody, a top guy. If that top guy is a little off, or if that top guy is not, understanding of what Sandhagen is, if Sandhagen is given a chance for one of those spots, I don't see anyone that Sandhagen does not have a chance to beat. He's that good. But in this case, he would have had to be beyond exceptional, the best that he could ever be. He would have had to be that and some, because this guy is, if this guy wasn't the real deal, Sandhagen wins the fight, because he was there to, everyone knew this was a test, and Umar passed the test, and like I said before, showed that it's not hype, it's not just that he's talented, it's not just that he's with Khabib. No, he's the full package, mentally, physically, technically. It was a terrific fight all the way through. Every round was interesting, and every round could have tilted one way or the other. It was just more dimensions for Umar. He had the dimension where he could mix up. He was mixing up his levels, nice body and head with the striking, but he also had the option, Ken, that Sandhagen didn't have, where he could mix up the takedowns and the grappling to the mat with the strikes. He could be striking and then mix in a takedown, where Sandhagen didn't really have that option. And that served to keep Sandhagen a little bit off balance, a little bit out of gear, where if he started to get his rhythm with the striking, Umar could break it up with a takedown or a takedown effort. So, and Sandhagen only had one thing. He had the striking, and Umar had two things. So, anyway, that's my take on it. It was a really, really good fight.
All right, let's do a quick preview of this coming weekend. Vergil Ortiz in tough against Serhii Bohachuk, the Ukrainian, with a record of 24-1 with 23 KOs against, obviously, the star Vergil Ortiz, 21-0, 21 knockouts. Super welter. This is going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to it. Who do you like here, and how do they get it done?
This is a good fight because of the styles. Anyone Ortiz fights is going to be, you're going to be interested in watching, because he brings it. He's still young. He wasn't healthy at a certain point in his life. He had to take about 2 years off. He's back. He's back with a vengeance. He's right back on track. He's still young. He's 21-0, 21 knockouts, like you said. He's still getting better. He's talented. He has a good trainer. He's technically solid. He's a big puncher. He's a ferocious body puncher. But he's a guy that you just love his style. He is the epitome of what they say when they say Mexican style. Where guys coming to get you with the left hook to the body, to the head. A lot of people think of that as the Mexican style. I remind some of the Mexican fans, don't forget guys like Salvador Sanchez. You had a lot of guys that were as pretty a boxer, as good with the sweet science, as clever boxer, as good defensively as any fighters could be. They didn't just come in and get you. They knew how to do the other parts of the game too. Guys like Salvador Sanchez. But I think Vergil Ortiz knows how to do those other things too. But his makeup, everything is geared around bringing pressure, breaking you down, and knocking you out, and preferably doing it to the body with that big left hook. Again, a sort of a signature punch for the Mexicans, where you think of that left hook. So many great Mexican fighters have had that punch. he is fun to watch. He is the guy that you mark the calendar when you're here because of what I just said. Because he's not going to take time to get you into the fight. As soon as the bell rings, he's going to get the guy. He's going to see if he can get the guy. And the great thing about this fight, it might not be great for Bohachuk, but it's great for the fans. It's great for the sport. Bohachuk's a guy who's right in front of you. He will engage you. He uses his jab well to come forward. He's technically solid. But he's not a guy that's going to disappear on you. He's not a guy that you have to go look around the ring for. He's a guy that's going to be right in front of you. And when you're right in front of Vergil Ortiz, usually you have a problem.
To say the least.
Because Bohachuk, once in a while, he'll put those earmuffs on. He'll come right at you, put the earmuffs. He's covered up. He's technically solid. He'll come behind the jab, good jab. But he'll cover up, and when you cover up against a guy like Ortiz, he just says, wow, that's like putting an invitation on a store to say, come in, there's a sale here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? That's like you put a sign on the store, come in, and we got a great sale for you, a sale on left hooks to the body, because when he sees that, covered up like that, he takes what you give him, and he takes the punch around the elbow, inside the elbow, wherever he has to throw it, he takes that body. And I just can't see Bohachuk, who's a solid guy, a tough guy. He's only got one loss to a really good fighter. He got stopped in that fight. He was winning the fight till he got caught with Adams late in the fight. But I can't see anyone at this stage who stands right in front of Ortiz and thinks he's going to fight that fire with fire coming out of there that doesn't get burned up by the fire. I mean, someday it might happen. I don't think it's going to happen now. I like Ortiz. I think it'll be a firefight, as I just described, because Bohachuk doesn't run away from that. He in his mind, he fights fire with fire. The only difference is that this guy's fire is an inferno.
Let me quickly give you the line for our friends at MyBookie. If you're so inclined to make a bet on the fight, please go to mybookie.ag and use the promo code ATLAS for a 50% credit on your first deposit. That's mybookie.ag, promo code ATLAS. The line on this fight, Teddy, minus 330 on Vergil Ortiz, plus 230 on Bohachuk. There's no prop bets at the moment, so just a straight money line on the end result.
If there does become a prop bet, I'm going to take Ortiz by knockout. I think he's going to get to him because Bohachuk is going to be in front of him. I think he will find a way to get to him with the left hook to the body, to the head. I would lay the money. I don't like laying a lot of wood, so to speak, but every once in a while I'll do it. And in this case, I think I would do it. I would lay the
330.
I would lay the 330 if I felt that I wanted to bet this fight, and I would take Ortiz. And if it does become a prop bet where there's an under-over or just taking one guy by knockout, I would take Ortiz by knockout. And I would, if it was a round proposition, I would say Ortiz doesn't waste time. It's not like he's gonna go out there and he's gonna, take 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds to size you up, and survey the territory, and then figure out where he's gonna put the left hook. No, he goes right out there right away, and he starts getting to work on landing those left hooks. So I would look, if there was anything around 3 rounds, I would say 3 or 4 rounds. I would think that Ortiz finds a way to get him out of there.
Well, there you have it. That's as thorough an episode as you're going to get. Before we go, Teddy, I know you've been flying back from LA, so I'm sure you're taking your athletic greens as soon as you touch down. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas to take advantage of the special offer for our listeners. 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. Athletic Greens, the all-in-one green drink that supports your body's health and immunity. It's my go-to supplement. It's the one thing, if I could only take one thing, it would be Athletic Greens. Made from 75 whole food sourced ingredients. Like I said, it's an insurance policy for your body's health and immunity. Even the healthiest diet can use some help. Make sure you're getting all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that your body needs. athleticgreens.com/Atlas for all your supplement needs. Teddy, great thorough episode. Thank you for doing this. I know you just got back from LA, so I'm sure you're dying to get some sleep tonight. But you got anything else before we say goodbye?
Yeah, on a sad note, I have one thing, but it's also a celebratory note too. We lost somebody in boxing, Serhii Bohachuk. He was a great old ring announcer. He was the old guard. He was the old-fashioned ring announcer. You know, he wore the tux, with the lapels, the old-fashioned ones. He was just a gentleman in every way. He was a consummate professional, but he was a really good, solid ring announcer in some big venues and small venues, all alike. He was the guy. He was the go-to guy that was always there for. I think he was a ring announcer for probably close to 50 years. I mean, and he just passed away. So I just wanted to mention that and just say rest in peace, Sandy. And if his family is listening, just want to say that we send our condolences and prayers, and we thank you for the years that Sandy gave us in the sport of just being as good as you could be at what you do. That was him. That he was everything a ring announcer should be. There was none of that hyperbole. There was none of that, having to come up with all these crazy signature things and everyone trying to outdo the other guy and everyone screaming and then they half of them get the name wrong, they get the decision wrong, they get the fight wrong, they get the weight wrong. With all that screaming, not Sandy. Every show that he did it the right way. He did it solid. He did it correctly. He didn't make mistakes because he was a guy that didn't look for, all of that stuff. He looked to be just what you should be in anything you do. Prepared and really good and passionate. So rest in peace, Sandy. You're going to be missed.
And there you have it. Rest in peace, Sandy. Well, Teddy, thanks again. We'll see everyone back here next week. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate your support. And we'll be back with you guys next week. Have a great week, everyone. Boom.